Hello, welcome to another Seismic Assault video with Slogurk and again with the domain. So I followed this list like a week ago, and I really liked the deck, and I think it's among the best Assault Loam decks I made so far. I made a few small changes to the list uh, in comparison to the previous list. So I dropped two seasoned pyromancers for third Slogurk, the Overslime, and fourth Seismic Assault in main, and also dropped two Ashioks for third Mystical Dispute and the third Force of Vigor on sideboard. Okay, so as I said, I'm very happy with this list. I really don't want to change anything. Uh, I had my two season pyromancers in the main as two only flex spots, and if I would do any changes, it would be only maybe in the number of seismic assaults, but just having four fury. You you're rarely stuck with multiple assaults in a hand, and you just have it more often, which is really good. So I think I'm happier with this list than with the pyromancer, so I'll definitely keep it like this for next games. Okay, so uh, I was looking as idea for this deck. I also previously trophied with a more aggro version of Domain Loam, where I played more creatures, lightning bolts, tribal flames. You can also check that list if you're interested in tournament history through Google search, just by writing my nickname and tournament results. This list is more mid-rangey and have a bit better late game because you're playing omnaths, you're playing furies, also playing some more removal like prismatic ending and seismic assault, chalice of the void to help us win against some more aggressive matchups, which would be kind of a bad matchup without the chalices in the main. But chalice in the main makes them all really good, so I really don't see any matchups that are very bad to this list. Obviously, there are matchups that are favored to win and matchups where we are favored to win, but I don't believe there is a matchup currently in Modern that this deck can't do nothing against. So there you can put up a fair fight against everything that comes your way, and I'm really satisfied with all the cards in the main and side. Obviously, you can change sideboard cards if you're playing this at your LGS and to hate against some matchups like maybe burn. I don't really need burn hate on this online meta. It's not as often as it would be in your LGS, where if it contains like three burn decks, so or maybe more. You also have Omnath in main, which is great, which is definitely quick win against any burn deck, and also just putting Kawu or Scion turn two. Uh, makes it hard for them to go through with damage, and also Shells of the Void wins against burn very effectively. Okay, so that's it. All for all other matchups, you have decent sideboard options, like against the control matchups, against Murktide, you have three disputes, two teferis, also against Murktide, two terminates, and three endurances. So it's a pretty large amount of cards that you can put in against Murktide. Also, you're putting in the boseijus to deal with the Blood Moon. So just having like 12 cards to put in against Murktide, which are very good against a lot of other matchups. It's a very good start to making your sideboard, because it is one of the most popular decks right now. Also, all these cards can be very good against four-color matchup. Obviously, Dispute is a very important cyber card right now, and it can easily steal the game against four-color omnath pile, not this one, but the Yorion one. This is also kind of omnath pile, but omnath here is just to to imitate the turn 5 power turns omnath piles usually play, like omnath fetch fury. uh, I was trying to find a good 4 mana spell creature for this deck that would be good in a more mid-range version of this deck, and Omnight kind of fits perfectly here. You can use it on your Fury, on your Force, on your Endurance to pitch it. It's 4 mana 4/4 body that draws you a card, which is like effect I was trying to find. And we are already playing Domain, so having all 4 mana is not a problem for this mana base. I'm also very happy with the mana base. I tested it a lot with a lot of different decks, and I'm pretty experienced at making these mana bases for this kind of decks, so I'm pretty happy with this one, and I don't want to change any lengths. Biggest difference between this mana base and the Aggro version mana base is we are playing Blood Crypt. I'm sorry, what happened? We are playing Blood Crypt in this version because we want to have a more fetchable lands with Omnath, for Omnath. So that's the reason why are we not playing Blood Crypt in the Aggro version, but playing one more fetch. And that's it. But for both versions of the deck, the mana base works really good, and I'm pretty happy with it. So Otawara is the inclusion here that has the most the less relevance of all other lands, but it can often be a deciding factor to win a game, especially against the Murktide decks. And as I said, since the Murktide decks are so omnipresent now, I think it's reasonable to play one Otawara. So that's it. I just had a 5-0 with this deck, so it's the second trophy in 6 leagues I played with this deck, and it has a very good overall result, a very good overall score. So 6 leagues, 2 5-0s, 2 4-1s, and 2 3-2s. So pretty good overall score. So let's just go through the games in games history, and we'll comment matches and some sideboard plans and stuff like that. So let's start. Okay, so game one, we played against the blue-white Graveblade deck. I was playing first, so played my cow on turn 2. That's definitely one of the best plays with all domain decks. Okay, so turn 3 I played my Vren, found my domain, returned my fetch, and turn 4 I was able to play my chalice and Scion of Draco. Okay, so chalice is decent in this matchup because it steps their ephemerate, their undying spells, Malaki Rebirth, Undying Evil, if it's called like that, something similar. Okay, so turn 5 I was able to put my Seismic Assault into play, and I had a lot of lands. So it was pretty much a game war for them. I think I misplayed somewhere in this league. In this first match, one time I had a lethal with Seismic Assault, but I accidentally killed their creature. It was because I was AFK for a few minutes, and when I returned, I forgot. Okay, so but still pretty good, pretty easy game. They don't have a solution for Seismic Assault game one, and just putting Assault into play so early with so many lands in hand, it's definitely very tough for them. So I had to. They discarded 2 of my cards with Grief turn 1, so I had to ditch my Fury to kill their Grief to not get too much pressured by Grief, and I removed their Charming Prince, but luckily I drew another prismatic ending for their Stoneforge. So I had a bit of luck there, definitely. Okay, so we were in a similar position. We were in a similar position, both players on the top deck mode. So I just kind of had a few better draws. They also had a solution for all of my threats. They killed Vran, killed Omnath. I did again find the chalice and the salt, also omnath. So I knew they had Caldra in hand, and they were missing just one land to play Caldra for 7 mana. But luckily I was able to play my Fury and their Solitude, which means if they play Caldra, I can, if they attack with Caldra, I can attack them with Fury. So it was okay for me. So they decided to stay back, of course. I drew a life from the Loam, which meant that they have just one turn to do something. Luckily, it seems like they don't play a Land Sash, or maybe they removed it from their deck. So they didn't have Land Sash to remove my life from the Loam, which meant game over for them. Yeah, so I just dredged, of course, life from the Loam and did 12 damage to their face. So that was it. That was it. Okay, so was that game 2? I always forgot these things. Yeah, that was it. That was game 1 against blue-white Greaveblade deck. Okay, so game 2, I played the second this game and I had to mulligan to 4, and it was a pretty tough position for me. I kept just Red and the Scion in hand, so really awkward position for me against a blue-white control. So just playing second with them having counterspell for my first spell, and luckily they did not have it, but I had to use Solitude to kill my Draco. Uh, they had counterspell for my Rena, and I was left with just 2 lands in hand, and just really no action at all. But then my opponent said they had some lag or something, and they just failed to find land with their fetch. So it was great for me. I don't know what they wanted to play, but they didn't have a counterspell for my omnath, and it was very good news for me. I drew a red, but they had a counterspell for that, but it was okay because they were left with just 1 card in hand. At this point, they found Wandering Emperor for my omnath, but they had 0 cards in hand, so it was good news for me. Meant that I'll be able to fight them this game. And they drew into more lands, and luckily I had boseiju in hand, otherwise it would be impossible for me to fight their main lands. And unfortunately they had solitude for my omnath again, so I'm sorry, not solitude, but march. And at this point I just had to play fury, so I tried to pressure my opponent. As I was just as I mulliganed to 4 this game, I was just lucky that I have anything, and my draws were decent, and I was able to catch them and just stay in the game. So at this point, they played Memory Deluge, played Archmage Charm, played another Memory Deluge, but it was kind of too late for them because they were too low on life. I had my Seismic Assault, had 2 big creatures on the battlefield, so I also drew into my third omnath, I think, or second. Uh, and that's it. They tried to find some more answers next turn, but they weren't able to deal with everything. They didn't have Supreme Verdict, and that was it. That was game 1. Win on a draw with mulligan to 4, so pretty unexpected. Okay, so just a second. Okay, so let's just quickly go through the sideboard plan for these first 2 matches. So against the blue-white Greaveblade deck, I don't have much, but I can bring my 2 boseijus in, so I can deal with their swords of fire and ice, lance sash, and other equipment except for Caldra they play. His sword can be very good, so it's pretty important to have solution for it. All other cards are not that great against the matchup, but Teferi can be very useful, makes them unable to use their ephemerates and unearth spells effectively, so Teferi is definitely a card you want to bring in these matchups, especially if you're playing first and you can just more comfortably put it into play, bounce their stuff, and they don't have damage to kill the fairy, damage spells to kill the fairy, so pretty good. Okay, so for this matchup, when you're bringing in Besiegers, you can always remove two Forgotten Caves. And sometimes in some matchups where you think that means non-Murktide, non-Caldra matchups, if you think the Forgotten Cave could be more important than Otawara, then you will just cut one Forgotten Cave, one Otawara, leave one cave in. Okay, so for Teferi, you can always, when bringing in 3 mana spell, you can always stream one Slogurk. Sometimes if Seismic Assault doesn't seem too important, you can trim one Seismic Assault, but it's pretty important in this matchup to have instant speed, 2 damage for all their creatures. They are trying to blink, or it's really important, so I wouldn't trim on Seismic Assault in this matchup. You can maybe trim on one Omelette, something like that, especially when you're playing second. It's still a 4 mana spell that functions best on turn 5, which can be kind of pretty late when you're playing second against this deck. So that's it. Sometimes, depending on the version the opponent is playing, you can also bring in 2 terminates, but it's not that important because you're already playing Furies, Endings, and Seismic Assaults, so it's not mandatory or necessary. Okay, so for a control matchup, it's similar against all control matchups. You're always bringing in 3 disputes and 2 teferis. If you're playing against Murktide, you're also bringing in 3 endurances and terminate. Against this blue-white control, you can also bring in 2 endurance because they play Memory Deluge, and it's a card with a flash, so you can use it on their turn, make them use counterspell, something like that, and then try to get through some important spell on your turn. So I bring in two endurance along with these in this matchup, so 7 cards total. You are removing, of course, Chalice of the Void in this matchup. It's useless. It doesn't do anything. So you can also trim one Slogurk and trim one Seismic Assault because it's not that important. In this matchup, you mostly want it late game, where opponent doesn't really have a solution for it except for prismatic ending. So it's definitely a very good late game card to draw against control because you just at one point you will resolve your run or life from the loam or slogurk, and you're just going to win with this seismic assault. So uh, these that are 5 cards, and you can also remove. Uh, you can also remove maybe one Fury in this matchup because they don't play much creatures, and you will mostly use it as additional as a beater or additional damage to kill their big or small teferi and stuff like that. So not really too important. Okay, so that's it. Let's go back to the games. Game two against game two against blue-white control. I kept 7 cards this hand, but I had some mana issues in the beginning. I decided to hold my dispute and not play into their counterspell, even so I wasn't sure if I'm going to draw a land here, so I just didn't want to play my spells into the counterspell, just hold this dispute. Also didn't want them to play small teferi, so I drew another dispute. It was kind of a slow play, and but they were stuck on 4 lands, so I used my first dispute to counter their memory deluge, which was okay, and I was still definitely in a good position. So I'm definitely in the lead here. I didn't want to play my cow in case they have Supreme Verdict, and they did have it. Unfortunately, killed both of my scions, which made this a lot harder for me. I still had my cow, so and the 2 disputes, so I was in a pretty good position. But unfortunately, my opponent had 2 prismatic endings. I was able to counter the first one, but they had the second one, which was very great for them, and just kind of put me in position where I don't have any threats on the battlefield, and a long game worked better in their favor. I had a dispute for their counterspell, but they also did have another counterspell for my omnath, so it was pretty much game over for me at this point. I did find my seismic assault, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find my life from Loam or Ram. I also boarded I boarded one prismatic dispute out for game two, because I didn't. Wanted to have something in case they board in Rest in Peace, and just a solution for the Teferi. But unfortunately, I drew 3 of them, all 3 of them that I played in the main at this moment. So uh, definitely bad draws for me. They replayed the Archmage Charm, drew some more cards, and they were able to play their Shark Typhoon. I still didn't have my life from Loam for my Seismic Assault. I succeeded to draw boseiju for their Shark Typhoon, uh, but then they just had flashback for Memory Deluge, and starting to put some pressure with these Shark tokens and Colonnade, so that was it. They just cast another counter spell, and that was it. Okay, so let's go to game 3. For game 3, I was really irritated by drawing those prismatic endings, so I removed all prismatic endings from my main. For especially game 3, I really don't want to draw any prismatic endings, and so I again had to mulligan to 5 cards, but it seems I'm playing much better with a low cards count. So the reason why I played Scion of Draco first is because I don't want them to use prismatic ending on my Kavu that early, and which means that I will lose a lot of pressure, so I definitely want to play my scion first because chances of scion surviving are pretty good. And at this point, I removed my fury because it's also, as I already said, not as good uh, in this matchup like in some other matchups. Unfortunately, they had counter. I think they had counter for my Vren. Yeah, they had counter for my Vren. I didn't want to play my forest. It didn't enable my seismic assault. I wouldn't be able to cast it anyway, so I just decided to hold it into hand, and I drew a red mana, so I cast my seismic assault. At this point, I was just if they played their if they sacrificed the fetch, they would be on 6 life, so 3 lands would kill them. But they play Emperor end of turn, and I decided to kill Emperor because it would possibly do much bigger clock for me on me, and might be able to win the game there if I didn't draw it. They could also maybe gain some life with it or something like that. So I was kind of afraid of Emperor, and so I decided to kill it. If I didn't kill it, a game would end sooner. I would have my 6 damage, but I'm not sure if they would sacrifice their fetch in that situation. So they would maybe be on 7 life. But I did draw another land, so it would be 6 damage. They were on 6, I had 2 seismic assaults. They need to kill each one separately with prismatic endings, so it's a very good position for me. I just need one land to kill them. I wasn't able to draw it, but I did find endurance, so when they cast their Snapcaster on Archmage Charm, I was able to remove their graveyard, which was definitely great for me. I did find another land, but at this situation, I was kind of afraid they have Solitude. So if I just did 2 damage to them at this point, they could play Solitude, gain 2 life, survive, then attack me with Solitude. So I definitely didn't want to do it on my turn. So I just wanted to do it on their upkeep. But end of turn they scryed with Castle Wantress, and then I did 2 damage in response. So you definitely want to wait with that 2 damage there. That means they can play anything end of turn. If they play it, you will do 2 damage, and you're just removing that them having solitude possibility. Okay, so that was it. Game 2. Uh, 2 hard mulligans, but I did have good draws, so it ended up very good for me. So game 3 played second against black red Griefblade. I decided to use my Fury on turn 1 to kill Ragavan because I didn't have a solution for Ragavan, so I've played my Kavu turn 2, and it's great against Kroxa. They had to kill it, or I would remove Kroxa. Unfortunately, they had removal for my cow and also filled their graveyard in process, so I just played my Slogurk here, and they had Seasoned Pyromancer, which was very good draw for them in this situation. So my hope was to just to try to draw another red source to play the Seismic Assault, and then maybe with a few with Slogurk ability I would be able to do some serious damage to face, maybe kill them with a Seismic, but unfortunately I made an error at the beginning of the game. I discarded my mountain instead of Forgotten Cave, and if I didn't discard my mountain, I would be able to play my Seismic Assault last turn, and then maybe I could stay back with both of my creatures uh, and survive the turn. They had Temur Battle Rage, which is kind of odd inclusion. Odd inclusion in this deck, but they had Temur Battle Rage and it was game winning for them in this situation, so that was it. I lost game 1. Game 2, just go to the Cyberpunk quickly. I definitely want my endurances in this matchup to deal with Proxa, and terminate can also be very good, so I think I put it in just those 5 cards. So for those cards, when you're not sure what to remove, just playing 2 Slogurks along with 2 life from the Loams is totally fine, so you can always trim 1 Slogurk. I also think Seismic Assault is good, but not defining this matchup, so you can also trim 1 Seismic Assault. Chalice of the Void is fine in this matchup. They play a lot of 1 mana spells, especially version with DRC. So you definitely leave that one in. And what else did I remove here? Just let me think about it. If you're, I'm not sure. I removed 1 Slogurk. Maybe you can remove 1 Chalice of the Void when playing second, but I've definitely left all 3 when playing first. You can remove 1 Seismic Assault. You can maybe trim some cards like Omnath when playing second. Also, if your opponent is playing a large amount of artifact destruction, like Cologan's Commons, boseijus, and stuff like that, you can sometimes board out your Scion of Dracos. But in most cases, this is among the best cards in a deck, so maybe I would just cut 2 or 3 of my Scion of Dracos here if I expect them to board in like maybe 2 or 3 Cologan's Commons. It can be pretty devastating just killing the Scion and discarding card from my hand. So pretty devastating play against Scion. So I think they definitely did board in some artifact removal. So removing Scion in that situation is okay. Okay, so I think I ended up with cutting 1 Omnath and a few Scions. That's it. So let's just go game 1, and they played Channeler on their turn, and I had Cow on my turn, which is definitely great when your opponent doesn't have a solution for it. And then playing Croxa on turn 2 is definitely great for me. Means I'll be able to just remove it from the graveyard immediately. And it also it's not just removing Croxa, but also removing a creature from their graveyard and making it hard for them to get Delirium. They played another channeler, played Inquisition. They tried to find Delirium to kill my Kavu, but they didn't succeed to do it, so it meant that it's pretty much a game over for them. They conceded because they had to attack and I would have little damage with my Fury. Wait a second. That was game 2, so game 3. Game 3 kind of a weird hand, so no fetches. But they discarded my Vran, but I had my life from the Loam and drew it to Seismic Assault, so pretty good for me. They played Alpine Moon to cut my Delirium. I didn't care too much for that. I drew another Vran, so I was able to just cast Vran and kill their Dragonite Channeler. I didn't care too much if they killed my Vran because at this point I didn't have fetchables, and I had life from the Loam in hand, so. Okay, unexpectedly they played Tombstalker, so I also played my KO in case they attack, so I can attack back because they are lower on life. And unfortunately they had good draws. They found the Season Pyromancer, and they started attacking with the Tombstalker, so I didn't want to shock land in. I thought damage would be every damage would be pretty important here, so I just played my second Cabo. Just tried to cut their Delirium, and my opponent decided to block with both, so I just grew my Cabo and left Endurance back. So that was it. They were on 4 life, didn't have solution for Cabo, and they just conceded here. So that was it. Kind of a bad place by my opponent in this match. Not too well played by him, definitely. Okay, so game 4, playing first against Yagmot, just having Vran and 6 on turn 2 and Seismic Assault on turn 3. I think that's unwinnable for Yagmot. I really don't know how they can beat that, so. Also, just having a Slogurk in hand is bonus. I decided to kill their innkeeper here to stop their life gain. Okay, so they put themselves to 14 life, which means I have lethal with my Slogurk, so it's definitely what I was expecting. Unfortunately, they killed my Ran, but I still had enough if I drew a land, which I did. And that was it. The most satisfying play in this deck. Just playing your Slogurk, getting it back, doing 14 damage in a turn, and just being able to replay the Slogurk again. That's great. That's my favorite win for this deck. So, game two. Okay, so just to go through the cyber plan against this. We are boarding in 3 endurances and 2 terminates. That's it. Don't need the fairies or anything else that much. So just endurances and terminates for Yagmoth and their undying creatures. Okay, so in this matchup, I think I got two omnaths, also all three shells of the voids, and you can maybe leave a third omnath, cut one Slogurk instead of omnath, but I think it's cutting two omnaths is just better here. So that's it. Chalice of the Void doesn't do anything, and Omnath is kind of slow against them when playing second, so I just removed 2 of those. All other cards are very good, like Scion is hard to kill with their Omnaths, and they only have Grist to kill it, so Slogurk, as you could see, game 1 can be pretty good against them, so even if they kill it, Slogurk returns 3 land to my hand, which is great with my Seismic Assault. So, game 2, same game plan. So, playing the Ren turn 2, playing the Assault turn 3 should be kind of impossible for them to win. So, but game 2, you can definitely expect Outland Liberators or some other artifact enchantment removal. When I drew my second Seismic Assault, I knew this is game over for them, so they can't possibly win this. With the Slogurk in hand, the 2 Seismic Assaults, and the Vrenon field, so also had Fury in my hand. And they played Yagmoth this turn, so you can see how important I think Seismic Assault is for this matchup. When I removed kind of best card in the deck, Kavu, to kill Yagmoth instead of second Seismic Assault, because I knew they were probably going to have Outland Liberator and to kill my Seismic Assault, and I really wanted to have another one in my hand. And as I said, just Seismic Assault with Vran or Loam, it's unwinnable for their deck. So I killed their creature in response to the vial ability, because if they play Grist, then they wouldn't be able to kill my Vran with Grist this turn, and that's the reason why I went for that. So as expected, they destroyed my Assault with the Liberator, so I played the second one. I just returned my land into hand. Okay, so this position is now game over for them. So just playing Slogurk. Killing their Grist, so they can't kill my Slogurk. They played another Imperial Recruiter. So I decided to use my Slogurk ability immediately, because I didn't want to. They have Violin and some open mana, So maybe they could do some tricks when playing Yawg and try to, in response to the ability of Slogurk discarding land, to remove a counter from my Slogurk, which would, and then I wouldn't be able to return my lands. So I wanted to do that ability right now and just have 3 lands in hand. In case they play Amulet, I can kill it immediately. At this point, they just conceded. It's just impossible for them to win this unless they have a removal for another seismic assault. So that's it. And game 5. Okay, so game 5, keeping definitely an awkward hand, but it's kind of okay when you're not sure what you're playing against. Unfortunately for my hand, it was Amulet Titan. Really, it really wasn't a good hand to keep against Amulet Titan, especially against Amulet Titan, but that did draw into Sign of Draco, so this meant that I'll be able to put some pressure on them. And just to start my clock, they had Amulet, and I had absolutely no solutions in my hand uh, for uh, for the Titan or for Amulet and anything really. So couldn't even play my Slogurk. But fortunately, I was able to kill Dryad and drew into my territorial cowl to put some more pressure on the field, and they just didn't draw into another land they needed, like so I just attacked and discarded my Slogurk because I wasn't really able to cast it with my mana in this game. I played my Seismic Assault and I didn't want to use it right away. I uh, I wanted to keep it as additional damage in case they play Titan this turn, and if they played the tap land, which returns land to their hand, I would kill Azusa in response to that. So, but they didn't find anything, and that was it. Okay, so against Titan, on the sideboard I have 2 more besiegers, three force of vigors, and 2 terminates. So these are all pretty good cards against them. Also, Chalice of the Void in main can be good to stop their tutors. Tolaria from the west, finding their 0 mana tutor, and also prismatic endings can obviously be very good in removing their amulets. And that's it. So just removed a few of my omnaths here. When playing second is definitely too slow against them. Removed one of my sluggerks. Uh, just a second. I remove 2 of my forgotten caves in place of besieges. Removed for force of vigor, 3 force of vigor. I removed 2 omnaths, and I think sorry. I removed all omnaths for this game when playing second. You can leave 2 when playing first, and 1 Slogurk to fit 2 terminates and 3 force of figures. Okay, so that's it. My opponent kept unusual hand. I didn't have artifact enchantment hate I needed. Like a force of vigor would be definitely big blowout for this game. But they had 2 sagas and Amulet of Vigor, which means they'll be probably able to do some disgusting play. I was able to remove one amulet luckily, and just having Fury as sorcery removal is not very good in positions like that. And I also didn't have a good land that would enable me to hold my terminate. So my only option was to play random 6, return the fetch to my hand, and save terminate for next turn. But having 2 amulets in play on turn 3 means they can do some pretty nasty stuff, and they did. They first played the Dryad, then they played Titan, then they played second Titan, but they messed up in the process, and they found too many bounce lands, so they weren't able to get their Valakut active. So point is never concede against your Amulet opponent, because they can fail very often, and they can misplay because it's a large process where you have to do everything correctly. And in this situation, they ended up with just 3 lands on the field, which meant that they can't have their Valakut active this turn. They also played Summoner Pact and didn't find any green mana, so I was able just to kill the Dryad and win the game. Okay, so that was all I had to do to win this. I didn't have mana to kill both Titans, so that was it. My opponent messed up late game and made it easy for me. Last game made it easy for me. So that was the whole league. The second 5-0 for the deck. Just as I said, in 6 leagues I played with this deck. Had a very good feeling playing it. 2 5-0 leagues, 2 4-1s, and 2 3-2s. And I can say that I'm more satisfied with more Slogurks and more seismic assaults than just playing a seasoned pyromancer. I think it's not that necessary after 2 or 3 leagues playing like this. I think it's not really necessary, and Omnath and the Forgotten Caves with Wren and Slogurk are enough card advantage. So that's it. I'm very happy for the deck to be able to have such a good score and 5-0 consistently, and I think it's a pretty good list. It's my favorite list from all Assault Loam lists I made so far, and I prefer this one the most. It's the most satisfying for me to play, because partly because I really enjoy playing these domain creatures. You could also try to innovate on this deck, like trying out tribal flames and stuff like that, but I think that tribal flames are a bit weaker without a bolt in the main. And if you want to play tribal flames, I would recommend to try out my previous version that was more aggro oriented. Played some seasoned pyromancies or tireless trackers, along with lightning bolts, tribal flames. It was definitely much more aggressive than this version, and could put some serious amount of damage in a turn, while also having assault plan. And But in this version I'm able to play 4 Furies, 4 Endings, have that premium removal there along with the Seismic Assault. I'm able to play my Chalice of the Void main, which wasn't that useful in this league, but in few games it was, and it's pretty good against all Cascade matchups. So just having a Chalice of the Void game 1 can really means a lot. So uh, that's it. That's it for this video, and I'll definitely play this deck in the future and try out some new stuff, change something just for experimental purposes. But I'm pretty happy with the list like this, and really don't want any major changes to the deck. Okay, so that's it. New triumphs will be out soon, but I'm pretty happy with these two. I still have to think about replacing Triumph, but I think these two are pretty good, and I'm very happy how they perform for me. So that's all for this video. Goodbye.